Well, it's a beautiful afternoon here in the Midwest. We're driving back from Chicago to Southeast Michigan today. We drove out yesterday evening, got most of the way there, stopped at a rest stop overnight. It's been raining buckets on and off for about the last 36 hours. Torrential rain. Kind of like you have in the Southeast, you know, in the summer in Georgia, Florida, at 3 p.m. every day when it just starts raining all of a sudden out of the blue. And it rains really, really hard for 15, 20 minutes and then stops and the sun comes out again and it goes back to being upper 90s with high humidity. Well, that's how hard it was raining on and off for hours yesterday and last night and this morning as we were headed into Chicago. We picked up about 7 pallets of freight, and now we're headed back home to Southeast Michigan to drop it off and try to enjoy the weekend, what's left of it. We're in our 2011 Duramax. It's a 3500, four-wheel drive, dually, obviously, with the crew cab. And it's got the LML series 6.6 liter Duramax engine, which actually came out that year. 2011 was a big year for the Chevy and the GMC heavy duties because they got a brand new frame, brand new engine. I think the transmission was upgraded. It was already a 6-speed Allison, I believe, going back a couple of years prior to that. But they made it stronger to be able to handle the new engine, which was a 397 horsepower, again, 6.6 liter V8 diesel with 765 pound-feet of torque. Very, very strong engine. Exceptionally strong engine. And it was a huge increase over its predecessor. The interior didn't really change. Nothing much that you could see actually changed. There was a slight difference in the way the bumpers look. The bumper and the grille between 2010 and 11, but most people can't tell the difference. The grille is just like a little bit bigger on the 2011, and the bumper has a little bit more of a cutout in the top of it. But that's it. The body style came out in 07, and so as far as the rest of the world is concerned, it might as well be a 2007, 2009, 2010. But no, this one's a 2011. We like it a lot. We've had it for about 6 or 8 months. We got it with 350,000 miles. And we know there are a lot of issues with the LML engine. Most prominently, the fact that the high-pressure fuel pump, which is called the CP4, made by Bosch, has a nasty habit of self-destructing because of the fact that it's made with extremely tight tolerances and it's designed for European fuel, which has a lot more lubrication in it than American diesel fuel. And so if there's the slightest impurity in the fuel, or if there's a little bit of water, a little bit of dirt, again, that high pressure injection pump, the CP4, will self-destruct. And in the process of doing so, it'll release tons and tons of little metal particles into the fuel system, into your high pressure lines, into your rails, into your injectors, into your return lines, all the way back to the fuel tank, and you'll have to spend thousands of dollars basically rebuilding the fuel system. And there's a lot of talk about that, but at the same time, the number of times that it's actually happened is in the low single digits. So, you know, you only hear about the ones that fail. You don't hear about the ones that go, like this one has, for hundreds of thousands of miles without any trouble. We like it a lot. It's not one of those trucks that you fall in love with the way you would with a Ram. We've got a 2003 Ram 3500 single rear wheel with the long bed, the quad cab. It's not a dually. It's two-wheel drive. We actually like the two-wheel drive much more in that time frame of the Ram because of the fact that the four-wheel drive has a straight axle and it can't steer. It's just kind of all over the road, and it takes a huge amount of effort to keep it pointed straight down the road in the four-wheel drive. two-wheel drive, has independent front suspension, rack and pinion steering, and it's really, really tight the way it steers. And again, we love that truck. The 5.9 Cummins, great engine. It's not even the high output in that truck. It's a standard output with like 235 horsepower. I don't know, 450 pounds of torque, give or take. It's not that strong, but the sound it makes, the way that the torque comes on, the power band, the transmission is okay. It's a 47 RE, but again, it's a very simple, durable, dependable truck. It never complains. It's towed, this same trailer we've got hitched up today to the Duramax, our 48-foot enclosed aluminum triple axle Exis car hauler / freight hauler, without a lot of drama. And so we love that truck. This one here, the Duramax, it's a highly competent truck, but you don't tend to fall in love with it. It doesn't, the sound of the engine, it doesn't give you the type of sound that the Cummins gives you, or like our 3.5 EcoBoost in the F-150, or like a lot of other engines and a lot of other vehicles we own. It doesn't give you that sound that tells you it loves what it's doing. This thing sounds like a delivery truck. This sounds like it's, it'll do the job. It's not going to complain, but it's just nothing you're going to fall in love with, and that's fine. Hopefully you got friends, and hopefully you got a significant other. Maybe you got kids. You don't need your truck to be your soulmate. But if you do, the Silverado is not going to be it. You notice the gauges on this thing. We've got tow haul mode engaged, and we've got the exhaust brake engaged. And those two features working together, along with the cruise control, make this an absolutely stellar towing vehicle. Both for going straight down the road, as we are now, on relatively flat roads, as they tend to be in the Midwest, or going up and down mountains. Because of the fact that that diesel exhaust brake, coupled with tow haul mode, coupled with the cruise control, works to give you a huge amount of control over the way this vehicle accelerates and decelerates. When you're going down steep mountain hills with a heavy trailer, this isn't super heavy. This is about a 10,000 pound trailer, give or take, maybe 11, maybe 12,000. It's just not a problem. There's no drama. The truck, anytime you lift your foot off the throttle, it immediately starts to downshift. That exhaust brake immediately starts to slow the engine down, which slows the vehicle down. Because it knows if you're off the gas, you are probably either trying to slow down or you're about to slow down. And so it doesn't let it just coast the way our F-150 does, the way a lot of other vehicles do, where, if you're going downhill and you're off the throttle, it's going to start to coast, and it's going to start to pick up speed, and it's going to start to get away from you and give you that uneasy feeling, like it's like a runaway train. And this truck does exactly the opposite. When you're off the throttle, or you're going downhill with the cruise control set, it will go to extraordinary lengths to keep the vehicle from accelerating and taking off on you. And that's great, because it means you don't have to ride the brakes all the way down the mountain and basically melt your brakes, prematurely wear them. And it also means you're not employing the trailer brakes. And when it's raining, when it's slick on the highway, you do not want to be on your trailer brakes and take the chance that they're going to lock up and the trailer's going to come around on you. That's not what you need in your life, that kind of drama. So, in terms of its ability to do its job, this is an outstanding truck. Very competent, great truck. Again, it's not the kind of thing you're going to fall in love with, but, hopefully you don't need a truck that you're going to fall in love with. Our 2003 Ram 3500, yeah, that thing is not what you want when you're going up and down mountains. We've taken it through the Rockies once with about an 8,000 pound trailer. It was not happy going through the Rockies, either going up or downhill. And, we had to rev the daylights out of the engine. The transmission wasn't loving it on the uphill, and on the downhill, we had to ride the brakes. even if you downshifted and you were in second gear going down a steep hill in that Dodge 3500 with the 5.9, because it did not have an exhaust brake, it had no ability to generate back pressure in order to slow the engine down and thereby slow the truck down. So, again, it was like being in a runaway train, and that's not what you need in your life. We also like on this Duramax the fact that it's got an independent front suspension, and you can actually feel, a little bit of feedback through the steering wheel to tell you what the front wheels are doing. It's got steering feel. It's precise. It'll get down the road relatively straight without you having to fight the wheel and expend huge amounts of effort and concentration and energy just trying to keep it going in a straight line the way you do with a solid axle pickup truck, like the four-wheel drive Dodge, like or even the newer two-wheel drive Dodges. I think they all have a solid axle, if I'm not mistaken, or the Super Duty, which I think has a solid axle, whether or not you're driving whether or not you've got a four-wheel drive. The Chevy is the only heavy duty right now that has an independent front suspension, and it has for many, many years, and hopefully will continue to do so. Now, the point of the video is to talk about some of the great features we've got in that new F-150 of ours, the 2021 Power Boost XLT Hybrid, and we've been driving it in and around the Southwest for about the last 3 or 4 months, running all of our business activities down there. We do defense contracting. A lot of people have asked, in logistics and deliveries to and from military bases and vendors and manufacturers and things like that. And the F-150 is a great truck for what it does. It was not built to tow a 48-foot trailer, obviously. It was made to tow your boat to and from the boat ramp. It was made to tow a small camper. But the actual payload and towing ratings on some of them are very, very high, upwards of 12,000 pounds. But you're not going to want to have 12,000 pounds hitched up to an F-150. It's not going to be comfortable. It's not going to be the kind of thing that's going to give you any amount of peace of mind over a long distance. Like the kind of distances we tend to drive. We go 500, 800 miles in a day. And when you're driving for that long, 10 or 12 hours, you don't want a truck that you are constantly having to fight against, and just doing this with the wheel all day. Because either it doesn't know how to drive straight, or because the wind is pushing your trailer around. And so the benefit of a 3500, or what Ford would call a Super Duty, an F-350, or a Dodge 2500, 3500, or a Chevy 2500, 3500, is that it's a heavier truck, so it's not going to get pushed around by the trailer quite as easily. And you have the option of a dually, meaning dual rear wheels. So you've got a lot wider of a rear track, so that it's not going to squirm and again feel like the pin weight in the bed of the truck is trying to push it around. This 48-foot trailer is much more stable, even in high winds, than a 12-foot U-Haul that we've had hitched up to our F-150, because of the fact that it attaches to the bed of the truck. And so all that pin weight goes straight down over the rear axle. And so it's a hell of a lot harder for the trailer to push the back of the truck around when it's attached directly to the over the center. The center of gravity of that pin weight is right over the rear axle, as opposed to being behind the rear bumper, and that gives you a pivot point that it can use to push the back of that truck back and forth and back and forth. And even with a self-driving system like the F-150 has, no, it's not a pleasant day when you've got wind trying to push your trailer around. But the F-150 has two things that we would call life-changing. And the first is Pro Power Onboard, which is where the engine acts as not just a propulsion unit for the vehicle, but it acts as an electric generator. And you can get Pro Power on board in a number of different powertrains. You can get it in the 5-liter V8, the 2.7 EcoBoost V6, the 3.5 EcoBoost V6. You cannot get it with the 3-liter diesel in the F-150. And I don't think you can get it with the base engine, which is a 3.3-liter non-turbocharged V6. I don't think so. So if you want Pro Power on board, which is an onboard AC power generation system, you have to get either the 5-liter V8, the 2.7 or 3.5-liter V6 EcoBoost engines. And either of those three engines will give you a 2 kilowatt output version that will operate only when the engine is on, and it'll give you 2 kilowatts of AC power, 120 volt AC power. You can also get with the Power Boost, which is a 3.5 liter EcoBoost. That's a hybrid system, up to 2.4 kilowatts of 120 AC power, which will run without the engine having to be turned on because of the fact that it's got a hybrid battery. And we've talked in great length about that hybrid battery and the fact that it's a very, very small battery. It's only 1.5 kilowatt hours. And so it's not going to run for long at all when it's generating AC power, when you're pulling AC power off the battery, before it has to turn the engine on. And then the final Pro Power onboard option that you have is a 7.2 kilowatt output version. And you also have to have the hybrid, the 3.5 liter Power Boost hybrid powertrain in order to select that option. And that gives you 7.2 kilowatts of total output, which is up to 30 amps of 240 AC, or 20 amps of 120. And you can have a couple of your 120 outlets in operation pulling 20 amps of power off of each one. So I think the total combined of 120 it can generate is around 6,000 watts, which is, 3 outlets generating maybe 15 amps of 120, 15 to 18 amps, or 2 outlets providing 20 amps each of 120 AC, and that gets you 4,800 watts, and then another 1,200 watts out of a third 120 outlet with 10 amps. Bottom line, it'll give you a ton of AC power, and that's out of the 7.2 kilowatt Pro Power onboard system in your F-150. And so here's the problem with it. It's a great system, but it's not available in the truck that you really want it in. Now, a lot of people have campers, and the thing about a camper is that frequently you will select a diesel engine to tow your camper with because of the fact that a gas engine is not really ideal for long distance towing. A gas engine burns a ton of fuel when you've got a trailer hitched up to it, especially a big high profile trailer like a camper. And so what you really want when you're towing a camper is a diesel engine, but you can't get the Pro Power on board in the 3-liter diesel in the F-150. And so that's a point of frustration. If you're talking about a heavier duty truck like a 250 or a 350 Super Duty, as of right now, Ford doesn't offer Pro Power on board in any of them. Hopefully, starting soon it will. And there are some rumors that because of the fact that it's such a popular option and the take rate is so extraordinary in the F-150, Ford is racing to find a way to incorporate it into the F-250 and 350. And the question is, well, are they going to put it in the diesel F-250 and 350? We sure hope so. Because, again, people towing a big camper, which is the ideal vehicle to exploit Pro Power on board, generally speaking, they're not going to have that gas engine, the 6.2 liter V8 or the 7.3. Those are great engines, but again, they're not ideal for long distance towing, especially at high altitudes. because of the fact that they're not turbocharged. And so if we were God for a day, we would tell Ford, get that Pro Power onboard system into the Super Duty as soon as you possibly can, and specifically get it into the diesel Super Duty with the 6.7 liter engine. If Chevy, if GM knew what they were doing, they would have a similar option with obviously a different name, but an AC generation system with high output, not like the 400 that they have right now, but at least 2 kilowatts in the Silverado and Sierra heavy duty. And so we eagerly look forward to the day when they do that. It hasn't happened yet, and if either one of them, if Ford or GM or even Dodge / Ram were to come out with that, that would make us seriously consider upgrading. We've talked in depth about the fact that most people don't need a brand new truck. Something like this, a 10-year-old 3500 Silverado, has easily all the capability that most people need. This thing will tow a 19,000 pound trailer. The gross combined weight rating, I think, is up to 30,000 pounds for this platform, the 2011 3500 HD with Dually and the Duramax engine. There's very few people on the planet that need a pickup truck with more than a 30,000 pound combined vehicle weight rating, meaning truck and trailer. Again, with this truck, you can't even feel that 48-foot trailer back there, even with the wind blowing on it, and with about 12,000 pounds of weight in it. You just don't feel it back there. The engine isn't having to work hard at all to keep the truck moving. You're not bottoming out over the bumps. It's not getting pushed around. This truck could go all day and night towing this trailer with no drama, and you'd arrive fully rested, after a long day on the road with it. So that being the case, the only reason we would upgrade from something like this, from a 10-year-old Silverado to a brand new either Silverado or Super Duty or a Dodge Ram, a Ram 3500, is if one of those three manufacturers would put something like Pro Power Onboard into it, and you could get it with the diesel engine. And so why Ford didn't put it in the 3.0 is a huge mystery to us, because the types of people that buy the 3.0 diesel in the F-150 are camper owners or people who do towing, because that engine is built for towing. So again, a huge mystery. And then the other major option that the F-150 has that we would consider life-changing, out of all the great features it has, the Pro Power Onboard is the first that, again, we would consider truly life-changing because of all the things it lets you do. It lets you run your house when there's a blackout. It lets you run a camper for something like 35 hours at the full 7.2 kilowatt output, or something like 50 or 60 hours at the 2.4 kilowatt output on a tank of gas. And again, that's life-changing. That will change how and where and when you travel with your truck and trailer. But the second thing is the self-driving system, otherwise known as 360 Copilot 2.0. And that makes it an absolute pleasure to drive that F-150. 800 miles in a day. It's just no sweat, because the truck is driving itself, by and large, and all you're doing is supervising. You're not spending every second of every minute of every hour for 8 or 10 or 12 hours a day keeping the truck in the lane. It's doing that work on its own, and you're kicking back with your hand on the wheel and supervising. There's all these YouTube videos of people putting like an ankle weight on the steering wheel so that they don't have to hold the wheel, and that's the laziest, dumbest thing you could possibly do. They do that on the Ford, they also do it on the Tesla, and it's like, come on, dude. Don't be an idiot. if the truck is going to do your driving for you, the least you can do is keep your hand on the wheel and supervise in case it screws up and you have to take over. But yeah, we eagerly await the day when Ford or Chevy or somebody will put a self-driving system that's competent and a high output AC power generation system into a heavier duty pickup than just the F-150. And that day cannot come soon enough. And if and when that happens, we will gladly trade this 10-year-old truck that's got no major issues, other than the check engine light, because, you know, certain parts of the emission system are constantly in need of maintenance, and we're just not worried about it. But again, it's a perfectly competent truck that could go for the next 5 or 10 years without giving us any trouble. But again, Ford, GM, Ram, somebody, please put some high output AC power generation systems into your heavy duty pickups, and we will buy one tomorrow afternoon. Anyway, thanks everyone. We will talk to you later, and hope you have a great weekend.